Call the meeting to order, please. Supervisor Hess, would you lead us in an invocation?
Please bow your heads.
Mr. Chairman, we need to come out
Oh,
of,
I'm sorry, excuse me. We need to do some other business first. Got carried away here.
Mr. Chairman, I move that the Board of Supervisors come out of closed session and reconvene in open session.
We have a motion, is there a second?
second.
Second by who? Supervisor Lofton. All's in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion passes.
Mr. Chairman, I move that the best of each board member's knowledge that only legal matters pursuant to Section 2.2-3711A7 of the Code of Virginia 1950 is amended, specifically consultation with legal counsel and briefing by legal counsel pertaining to a legal claim against the county, Lake Holiday Country Club, Inc. versus Frederick County Board of Supervisors et al., currently pending in the Frederick County Circuit Court, and a legal claim against the county, Lunenberger versus Spicer et al., currently pending in the United States District Court for the Western District of Virginia, where such consultation or briefing in an open meeting would adversely affect the negotiating or litigating posture of the board, and the matter requires the provision of legal advice by such counsel, and the matter involving the Winchester Regional Airport Authority. Personnel matters pursuant to Section 2.2-3711A1 of the Code of Virginia 1950 as amended, specifically concerning one or more provisions of the county administrator's contract of employment were discussed.
Is there a second?
Second, Mr. Chairman.
Second by Supervisor Fisher. Any discussion? Hearing none. Supervisor Ranson?
Aye.
Supervisor Hess?
Aye.
Supervisor Fisher?
Aye.
Supervisor DeHaven?
Aye.
Supervisor Lofton?
Aye.
Supervisor Wells?
Aye.
Chair votes aye and the motion passes. Supervisor Hess?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to move the Lake Holiday Country Club settlement, that the board approve the Lake Holiday Country Club settlement agreement in substantially the same form as presented to the board, also providing for a fee of $100 per plat for lot consolidations, and directing staff to take all contemplated actions expeditiously.
Questions? If not, is there a second?
Second, Mr. Chairman.
Second by Supervisor DeHaven. Any discussion? Hearing none. Supervisor Wells?
Aye.
Supervisor Lofton?
Aye.
Supervisor DeHaven?
Aye.
Supervisor Fisher?
Aye.
Supervisor Hess?
Aye.
Supervisor Ranson?
Aye.
Chair votes aye.
Mr. Chairman, I move an appropriation of $200,000 from sanitary district funds for the purpose of, as outlined in the agreement.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second, Mr. Chairman.
Second by Supervisor Wells. Discussion. Hearing none. Supervisor Ranson?
Aye.
Supervisor Hess?
Aye.
Supervisor Fisher?
Aye.
Supervisor DeHaven?
Aye.
Supervisor Lofton?
Aye.
Supervisor Wells?
Aye.
Chair votes aye and the motion passes. All right, we'll now convene the regular meeting, and Supervisor Hess, will you lead us in an invocation?
Please bow your heads. Almighty God, we ask your blessing upon those gathered here tonight. Guide us all and give us the strength and desire to continue to serve you, our country, our commonwealth, and our great nation with cheerful hearts and dedication of purpose. Father, we thank you for the blessings of liberty and for the freedoms we enjoy, and we offer our special thanks to those who serve and have served in our armed forces to preserve those freedoms. Heavenly Father, Monday marks the first day of school for Frederick County, and we ask that you guide the teachers who help mold the future of our county in the classroom each day, and we ask that you help the support staff recognize the important part they play in the school system by being good role models for the students. And we ask that you encourage the students and make them more deeply aware of their heritage and the promise that the future holds. Father God, we ask for your strength and your guidance to do the tasks set before us. Keep us concerned about the welfare and improvement of our county, the safety and pride of our homes, and the moral and spiritual values that guide our community. In your heavenly name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Vice Chairman DeHaven, will you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Stand face the flag for the pledge, please. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
To the republic for which it stands,
one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Adoption of the agenda. Ms. Garden,
No changes.
is there a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Motion by Supervisor DeHaven, is there a second?
Second, Mr. Chairman.
Second by Supervisor Hess. Discussion. Hearing none, all's in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The agenda is adopted. Consent agenda. Go ahead.
I'm recommending items under tabs A, F, G, H, I, J, and K for consent agenda approval.
Questions or a motion?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
A motion by Supervisor DeHaven, is there a second?
Second, Mr. Chairman.
Second by Supervisor Fisher, discussion. Hearing none, all's in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The consent agenda is approved, A, F, G, H, I, J, and K. Next are citizen comments. Did anyone sign up?
Yes, sir. You have J, L, I believe it's Martz, who wants to speak about school construction.
Good evening. My name is Jay Martz. I'm a member of the Gainsborough District. Chairman Schickel, members of the board, I see on the agenda tonight we have the fall 2015 VPSA bond sale for continuing construction of our one of our government schools is on the agenda this evening. I believe it's the middle school. I would ask that this representative body provide some instruction to the school board to provide you and the taxpayers of Frederick County with a serious professional engineering estimate of alternatives to construction of the $90 million fourth high school, which will be on the agenda soon. And not just informal discussions. Because in discussions that I and other Frederick County citizens have had with the school board has left me with the impression that they are determined to build this fourth high school without any consideration of other options such as expansion of the three high schools. A couple of examples. When members of the school board were questioned about vertical construction at Jameswood High School, it appeared obvious to me that this had not been a consideration at any of the three high schools for expansion. And after all, we are building a three-story middle school. The statement that I received about Sharando High School could not be expanded because it was landlocked seems disingenuous since it sits adjacent to our largest county park, land that taxpayers already own. And one thing, I could never understand why we built a baseball field for this high school when there were 8 baseball fields sitting adjacent to that in the park. I would also suggest that a review of the census population numbers be conducting. According to the Frederick County Public Schools' own membership history, from 2009 to 2015, over the last 6 years, we have actually dropped 56 high school students. We've lost 8 students per year. Additionally, I've not received a good answer on the overnight decision by the school board's 25 February 15 Buildings and Ground Committee on increasing the capacity of the proposed high school from 1,250 to 1,725. What census projections were they using to make this decision in that committee? I haven't heard. I've provided Mr. Tibbs, the Deputy County Administrator, with a petition signed by numerous Frederick County citizens asking for alternatives to this expansion of this building of the fourth high school without looking at expansion. So please give that a look. No one doubts that there will be a need for a fourth high school, just not now and not at this price. Thank you for allowing me to address the board.
Anyone else?
No, sir.
Any Board of Supervisors comments? We'll move on to the minutes. First is the closed session and joint work session with the Frederick County School Board.
You've already approved
Oh, I'm
those.
sorry. You're gonna have to keep me on tab here tonight. Employee of the Month. Supervisor DeHaven, would you join me? Would Aaron Jeter, Chester Render, and Christopher Darlington come forward? The Employee of the Month Award program recognizes the county's employees as an important and valuable resource. On behalf of the Board of Supervisors, it is my pleasure to present Aaron Jeter, Chester Renner, and Christopher Darlington for consideration as Employees of the Month for August, September, and October 2015, respectively. Aaron serves as a deputy, Chester serves as a corporal, and Christopher serves as deputy in the Frederick County Sheriff's Department. On July 10th, 2015, this team of 3 deputies stopped a vehicle for speeding. After a complete investigation, they were able to seize 261 packets of heroin. Generally, a patrol deputy would not see this amount of drugs during their entire career. However, with the common trend of heroin tied to thefts, overdoses, and deaths, these deputies are to be commended for getting this heroin out of our community and possibly saving lives. I will now entertain a motion to approve Aaron Jeter as Employee of the Month for August 2015.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
A motion by Supervisor Hess. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Supervisor Lofton. Any discussion? All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. I will now entertain a motion to approve Chester Renner as Employee of the Month for September 2015.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Wells makes the motion. Is there a second?
Second, Mr. Chairman.
Supervisor Fisher makes the second. Discussion. Hearing none, all those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Now entertain a motion to approve Christopher Darlington as Employee of the Month for October 2015.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Supervisor Hess makes the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Supervisor Lofton. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Aaron Jeter, Chester Renner, and Christopher Darlington are hereby recognized as the Frederick County Employees of the Month for August, September, and October respectively. The Board of Supervisors extends its gratitude to this team for their outstanding performance and dedicated services and wishes you continued success in future endeavors. Thank you, sirs. Next is committee appointments. Board of Zoning Appeals. We have an application from John D. Klein. It's your pleasure.
Mr. Chairman, I'd move that he be appointed.
All right, we have a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second, Mr. Chairman.
Second by Supervisor Lofton. Discussion. Hearing none. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. John D. Klein is hereby appointed to the Board of Zoning Appeals. Agricultural District Advisory Board, we have an application from William H. Klein.
Move for appointment, Mr. Chairman.
We have a motion by Supervisor DeHaven. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Chairman.
Second by Supervisor Fisher. Discussion. Hearing none. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Then William H. Klein, got that right, yeah, to the Agricultural District Advisory Board. Next is the Extension Leadership Council Redbud. Are we ready?
Search continues for somebody to fill.
All right. Lord Fairfax Community College Board, I still believe we're looking there. Social Services Board, Stonewall.
Mr. Chairman, Ms. Marsh does not wish to be reappointed, so I would certainly appreciate any help that we would have and any citizen who would wish to volunteer to serve as the Stonewall District representative to the Social Services Board.
All right, that concludes the committee appointments. Next is a request from the Commissioner of Revenue for a refund. Go ahead.
Yes, sir, you have three requests from the Commissioner of Revenue. One is to refund Alley Financial Vault in the amount of $5,404.94 for prorated personal property taxes in 2013, 14, and 15. The second one is for $2,929.53 to Ford Motor Credit Company for prorated personal property taxes in 2014 and 15, and a license fee for 2015. And the final one is $4,070 to Opal Oil Incorporated for a business license tax in 2015, where the taxpayer did not actually open the business. And all of those have been verified by the Commissioner of Revenue and the County Attorney.
Questions? Is there a motion to approve the refund and the appropriation?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Motion is made by Supervisor DeHaven. Is there a second?
Second, Mr. Chairman.
Second by Supervisor Hess. Discussion? Hearing none. Supervisor Ranson?
Aye.
Supervisor Hess?
Aye.
Supervisor Fisher?
Aye.
Supervisor DeHaven?
Aye.
Supervisor Lofton?
Aye.
Supervisor Wiles?
Aye.
Chairman votes aye and the motion passes. Next is a request from the Park and Recreation Commission in reference to a donation and naming of the picnic shelter at Rose Hill Park. Who is handling?
believe Jason is here.
There he is.
The Parks and Recreation Commission is requesting the Board of Supervisors to approve the naming of a picnic shelter at Rose Hill Park, the Winchester Frederick County J.C.'s Tom Baldridge Shelter. The attached MOU in your packet explains the donation and the type of shelter that will be constructed.
So all that's in order is the approval of the naming,
Yes, sir.
not the, we don't have to accept the gift.
Not tonight, no, sir.
Okay. All right, you've heard the request. Are there questions?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
just want to make sure this doesn't set a precedent, as we do have other shelters that are named after people who have made donations in other areas of the parks.
I'm sorry?
This wouldn't be unusual to have this occur.
No,
Because there are others already.
There are, yes. Usually the shelters in the parks are donated and constructed with that money.
Other questions? I would assume that most people still remember the fine life that this gentleman lived in our community, but it will soon be forgotten. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Supervisor Hess makes the motion. Is there a second?
Second, Mr. Chairman.
Second by Supervisor Fisher. Discussion. Hearing none, all those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed, no. Thanks, sir.
Thank you.
Public Safety Committee. Supervisor Lofton.
I'm getting there, sir. Thank you. For a little background, the Public Safety Committee met on Thursday, July 16th, 8:30 at Frederick County Public Safety Building. The issue requiring action tonight, or requested action tonight, is, as you may recall, several years ago, the county began a revenue recovery fee for services provided by our EMT provider. We initially, when we started that revenue recovery, we were able to tag on to the City of Winchester's contract for EMS billing services, which was provided by a local vendor. During the next 22 months, the revenue recovery program operated by the third-party provider has had a good history. However, the contract that the city had ran out, so they advertised for another contract. And the contract that they had received and which they accepted actually had a different vendor than the one that was currently utilized. Staff talked about this. We do have the option to ride on to the contract that the city has issued, but we felt like we would like to go a different route because we felt like local vendors that have served us well might still serve us well into the future. And so we have made a recommendation by the committee that the Board of Supervisors of Frederick County prepare its own RFP to select a new third-party billing company for our revenue recovery program, and I would so move.
You have a motion. Is there a second?
Second, Mr. Chairman.
Second by Supervisor Fisher. Discussion. Hearing none, all those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed, no. The motion passes. That conclude your report?
That concludes my report.
Human Resources Committee. Supervisor Hess.
Mr. Chairman, the HR Committee met on Friday, July the 24th, and all members of the committee were present. We've already taken care of the first action item in the approval of the Employee of the Month awards. The other action item that we would like to bring to the board is the fact that the IT director presented a reorganization plan to create an applications development group within the IT department. The committee unanimously supported this reorganization as it will address both current and future IT needs for the county. The IT department maintains two separate budget department allocations, Management Information Systems and Information Technology, both of which are under the IT director. In order to achieve this reorganization, the HR Committee recommends to the board that the board approve a transfer of $70,671 from the IT department to the MIS department. Both departments, as I have said, are under the IT director. And I so move.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second, Mr. Chairman.
Second by Supervisor Lofton. Discussion.
Mr. Chairman, I would, if I may comment. I do think this action prepares us for a better organizational process in that IT department and probably lead us to future improvements that I think will enhance that department even more.
Other discussion? Hearing none. Supervisor Wells.
Aye.
Supervisor Lofton.
Aye.
Supervisor DeHaven.
Aye.
Supervisor Fisher.
Aye.
Supervisor Hess.
Aye.
Supervisor Ranson.
Yes.
Chairman votes aye, and the motion passes. That concludes your report. We'll move on to the Finance Committee. Supervisor DeHaven.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Finance Committee met on the first floor conference room on Wednesday, July the 15th at 8 a.m. Item number 1 is the Parks and Recreation Director requests a fiscal year 16 general fund supplemental appropriation in the amount of $95,000. This amount represents the use of proffer funds for a restroom building at Rose Hill Park. Proffer funds are available. The committee recommends approval, and I'd so move.
We have a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second, Mr. Chairman.
Second by Supervisor Lofton. Discussion. Hearing none. Supervisor Ranson.
Yes.
Supervisor Hess.
Aye.
Supervisor Fisher.
Aye.
Supervisor DeHaven.
Aye.
Supervisor Lofton.
Aye.
Supervisor Wells.
Aye.
Chairman votes aye, and the motion passes.
Item number 2, the Parks and Recreation Director requests a fiscal year 16 general fund supplemental appropriation in the amount of $168,000 for the construction of a trail at Rose Hill Park. This amount represents anticipated remaining fiscal year 15 funds. Current balance is $168,000, and the appropriation will not exceed the final fiscal year 15 year-end balance. The committee recommends approval, and I'd so move.
Motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second, Mr. Chairman.
Second by Supervisor Hess. Discussion. Hearing none. Supervisor Wells.
Aye.
Supervisor Lofton.
Aye.
Supervisor DeHaven.
Aye.
Supervisor Fisher.
Aye.
Supervisor Hess.
Aye.
Supervisor Ranson.
Yes.
Chairman votes aye, and the motion passes.
Item number 3, the Parks and Recreation Director requests a fiscal year 16 general fund supplemental appropriation in the amount of $22,780.36. This amount represents anticipated remaining fiscal year 15 funds for the completion of the Sharando Park Master Plan. The current balance is $28,520.36, and the appropriation will not exceed the final fiscal year 15 year-end balance. The committee recommends approval, and I'd so move.
Motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second, Mr. Chairman.
Second by Supervisor Lofton. Discussion. Hearing none. Supervisor Ranson.
Yes.
Supervisor Hess.
Aye.
Supervisor Fisher. Excuse me.
Aye.
Supervisor DeHaven.
Aye.
Supervisor Lofton.
Aye.
Supervisor Wells.
Aye.
Chairman votes aye, and the motion passes.
Item number 4 is the Public Safety Communications Director requests a fiscal year 16 general fund supplemental appropriation in the amount of $2,000. This amount represents a grant from the Virginia E911 Wireless Education Program. No local funds are required. The committee recommends approval, and I'd so move.
A motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second, Mr. Chairman.
Supervisor DeHaven, or Fisher, I mean. Any discussion? Hearing none. Supervisor Wells.
Aye.
Supervisor Lofton.
Aye.
Supervisor DeHaven.
Aye.
Supervisor Fisher.
Aye.
Supervisor Hess.
Aye.
Supervisor Ranson.
Yes.
Chairman votes aye, and the motion passes.
Item number 5 is the sheriff requested a fiscal year 15 general fund supplemental appropriation in the amount of $400. This amount represents 2 donations to the DARE program. The committee recommends approval, and I'd so move.
We have a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second, Mr. Chairman.
Second by Supervisor Lofton. Discussion. Hearing none. Supervisor Wells.
Aye.
Supervisor Lofton.
Aye.
Supervisor DeHaven.
Aye.
Supervisor Fisher.
Aye.
Supervisor Hess.
Aye.
Supervisor Ranson.
Yes.
Chairman votes aye, and the motion passes.
Item number 6 is the sheriff requests a fiscal year 16 general fund supplemental appropriation not to exceed the final fiscal year 15 year-end balance for the Abbott grant. The current balance is $41,480.72. The committee recommends approval, and I'd so move.
A motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second, Mr. Chairman.
Second by Supervisor Hess. Discussion. Hearing none. Supervisor Ranson?
Yes.
Supervisor Hess?
Aye.
Supervisor Fisher?
Aye.
Supervisor DeHaven?
Aye.
Supervisor Lofton?
Aye.
Supervisor Wells?
Aye.
Chair votes aye, and the motion passes.
The item number 7, we're going to defer to a future board meeting.
That concludes
And that
your,
concludes my report, Mr. Chairman.
thank you. All right, we'll move on to the Transportation Committee. You're still up.
I have to wait for my machine. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Transportation Committee met on July 27th, 2015 at 8:30 a.m. It's one action item, and that was a continuing discussion at the request of the board for potential transfer of the funds from the Russell 150 revenue sharing projects. At the request of the board, we've been investigating ways to preserve funding procured for the Russell 150 projects now in danger of being deallocated. Committee recommends that the Renaissance Drive would benefit from a transfer of $400,000, that Route 11 North would benefit from a transfer of $500,000. And additionally, staff noted that the board could submit a revenue-sharing application with the intent of funding it via transfer. Possible projections include Coverstone Drive and Justice Drive. Based upon a motion, committee recommends that the board proceed with the transfer of items 1 and 2 and consider additional information which they've directed staff to gather for item 3 for possible action as well. Staff be prepared to present at the meeting those items and potential additional projects. Bishop?
Sir. As noted by Mr. DeHaven, we have been working on these potential other projects, one of which is Justice Drive, which you are familiar as it does. It's an existing roadway from 522. It's also proposed to cross school property, which is where the school division is looking at building their 4th high school. You can see on the map to your right that specific location highlighted in green or yellow, depending on how colorblind you are. Lime green, I guess. And the lower right inset shows how that eventual roadway fits into our network in terms of heading northward along the Route 37 corridor and tying into the roundabout at Airport Drive and Victory Boulevard. So it does have a relatively important place in our long-term transportation planning per your comp plan. However, given that we do not know when those future segments may happen, since we tend to wait for development to take care of these things, that does not qualify as informed by VDOT. So that one is not on the table. I just wanted to outline why we thought it was important, why we were looking at it. So moving on from that, you have Coverstone Drive. You may recall at our last round of revenue sharing applications, we had put in for everything you see in red and green and blue. VDOT subsequently asked us to trim that request back to basically the blue segment, which the choice given to us was either to do that or not get approval, so we trimmed it back. However, given the stance we are in, we reached out to VDOT again and asked, would you reconsider letting us go back to our former application and funding it through a transfer of some of these funds? And they came some way, but not all the way. They still would prefer that the red piece be constructed by private development, but they are willing to allow us to apply, once again, application intended to be funded through transfer, to add the green. So we would be looking at an additional $2 million potentially there. We'd need to refine the number with VDOT as we put together the application. Sir.
What you just said there, they would prefer that the red part be totally private versus the other part, which is 50% private.
Yes,
It sounded like you were saying something a little different, and
Oh.
revenue sharing always has a match, right?
Revenue sharing
50%.
always has a match. It's just, they don't want us to apply for half of the red section. Don't ask me to explain why, because I'm not entirely clear on it myself. But it's a little ambiguous, but that is the direction we've received. So there is an opportunity there to transfer as much as $2 million to that project. Anytime you're going from a 2-lane road to a 4-lane divided, that's not just a doubling of cost. There's more involved there as you provide medians and everything like that. So as I noted, we would refine that cost estimate as we turned it into an application, as an actual application, but we're looking at probably about $2 million additional there to be able to transfer. Finally, I have another project that was brought to me fairly late, which is why you have a graphic. I'm not able to put it up on the screen, by our Economic Development Commission Director. And that is for a connecting road between Brook Road in Fort Collier Industrial Park and Park Center Drive, which, for those not familiar, that comes out next to the Exxon and everything there as 11's bleeding into Route 11 North. What you have is the site plan graphic that shows that road that goes around the Hershey Pasta there. Someone's interested in that piece of property. The proffers would require that road get put in place. So this was brought as a potential transfer. You would be looking at another potential transfer of about $750,000.
Is that half of the total cost?
That's half of the total cost of an expected $1.5 million to make that connection between Fort Collier and Park Center Drive. Now, if you choose to direct me to make the transfers, that's something that we can go ahead and make that request via transfer through a letter from your county administrator in short order. If you choose to direct staff to additionally start setting up these applications to be funded via transfer, we would be setting up those applications, refining the cost estimates, and bringing them back to you for a resolution of support, which we would then submit the package.
You may know or you may not know. I think you do. How long do we have?
We really need to have taken some action by September or October at latest, based on the information I'm receiving right now. It's all to do with that fall into winter timeframe is when VDOT staffers are preparing the list of deallocations to go forward to the Commonwealth Transportation Board. Before they receive that list, they've got a fair amount of flexibility. After they've received that list, they have much less.
So
that's why we're trying to hit that window, September, October, to get a submission made.
postpone this now that we know what we'd ask for until
Sorry, yes, you
September. Okay. It's kind of one of those things where we know where we'd like to spend the money, can't get there, but wonder if it's worth waiting until the bitter end. What's the pleasure of the board?
I'd suggest we wait.
Is that a motion to postpone?
Yes, sir.
September, meeting in September?
Second.
Is there a second? Discussion? That works?
Yes, sir.
All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion passes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That concludes my report.
Next, we have an outdoor festival permit request of Concern Hotline. Go ahead. Or do you?
Rusty Holland is here on behalf of the application, if the board would like to hear from them.
Okay. You come forward. Tell us about your event and your application.
16th annual, we're expecting around 2,000 individuals as we did last year. Millwood Station will be providing paramedic support, and the Frederick County Sheriff's Department is there for transportation and other safety issues that may arise. I've never had to speak for this before, so I guess that's what you want to hear.
Any questions? Thank you, sir.
Excuse me, I do have one question. Hold on just a moment, let me pull that up. What's primarily going to occur at the festival?
Primarily catfish frying and eating and a little bit of music.
Thank you.
We will now conduct a public hearing on an outdoor festival permit request of Concern Hotline, 16th Annual Friday Fish Fry Celebration. Pursuant to the Frederick County Code, Chapter 86 Festivals, Section 86.3, permit is required, application, issuance, or denial, fee for an outdoor festival permit. The festival is to be held on Friday, September the 4th, 2015, from 4 o'clock p.m. to 9 o'clock p.m. on the grounds of Groves Winchester Harley-Davidson, 140 Independence Drive, Winchester, Virginia, property owned by Jubilee LLC. Is there anyone here who would like to speak either for or against this outdoor festival permit? Seeing no one, we'll close the public hearing. What's the pleasure of the board?
Mr. Chair, I move for approval.
We have a motion by Supervisor DeHaven to approve and a second by Supervisor Fisher. Any discussion?
Mr. Chairman, this festival continues to be run very efficiently. It's been done annually at Groves Harley-Davidson, and they do an excellent job running that every year.
Any other discussion?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I will be willing to vote in favor of this. I have no objections to the event, but I'm going to essentially say the same thing for both festival permits that we're considering tonight. And that is, I think we need to take a look at the county code regarding festivals. It would seem to me that we've been perhaps approving some events that don't require a festival permit. It's my understanding that the festival permit addition to the code came about as a result of Woodstock, and a lot of communities adopted provisions to require permits for music events. And in fact, our code says that any gathering of more than 100 individuals, for the purpose of listening to or participating in entertainment, which consists primarily of musical renditions conducted outdoors. That was the reason for my question in terms of what took place. I just think we need to perhaps take a look at the application of this code and whether some changes ought to be made to it.
Let's dispose the item and then perhaps take that someplace. Any other discussion? We ready to vote? Assume so. Supervisor Ranson?
Yes.
Supervisor Hess?
Aye.
Supervisor Fisher?
Aye.
Supervisor DeHaven?
Aye.
Supervisor Lofton?
Aye.
Supervisor Wells?
Aye.
Chairman votes aye and the motion passes.
We can do that. We can discuss it after the second.
I believe might be the best place to send that, if you don't mind.
Not a problem.
Chairman would like then to send this topic, code and ordinance. All right. Then we'll move on to the next item, which is also an outdoor festival permit request of Rotary Club of Winchester. Is someone here from Rotary?
Tootie Rinker?
Good evening, gentlemen. I'm the president of the Winchester Rotary Club, and we're going to have our very first Apple Harvest Festival in September, the 18th and 19th, and we hope to hold it at the Frederick County Fairgrounds. It's the first in Frederick County. It will be something like our 42nd festival. We've held it for over 40 years in the city of Winchester, and we want to move it to Frederick County. After all, it is an Apple Harvest Festival. And we will have, to answer some of the questions, you probably have everything in front of you. We will have some entertainment. We have children's events. We have craft vendors. And this year we will be adding an apple cider, hard cider tasting with craft beer tasting and possibly some wines. So we're working with the ABC. We have already received our license to do so. So any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Questions? Thank you. Now conduct a public hearing on outdoor festival permit request of the Rotary Club of Winchester Shenandoah Valley Apple Harvest Festival pursuant to the Frederick County Code, Chapter 86 Festivals, Section 86.3. Permit required, application, issuance or denial, fee for an outdoor festival permit. The festival is to be held on Saturday, September the 19th, 2015, from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m., and on Sunday, September the 20th, 2015, from 10 o'clock a.m. to 5 o'clock p.m. on the grounds of the Frederick County Fairgrounds, 167 Fairgrounds Road, Route 11 North, Clearbrook, Virginia, property owned by the Frederick County Fair. Is there anyone here who would like to speak either for or against this outdoor festival permit request? Seeing no one will close the public hearing. What's the pleasure of the board?
Chairman, I would move to approve.
We have a motion by Supervisor Lofton to approve. Is there a second?
Second, Mr. Chairman.
Second by Supervisor Hess. Discussion? Hearing none. Supervisor Wells?
Aye.
Supervisor Lofton?
Aye.
Supervisor DeHaven?
Aye.
Supervisor Fisher?
Aye.
Supervisor Hess?
Aye.
Supervisor Ranson?
Yes.
Chairman votes aye and the motion passes. Next is a public hearing on an amendment to the Frederick County Code, Chapter 7, elections. I believe he is here, our registrar.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. I'm here tonight as the registrar to ask for a request to move a polling place with the building of the new Round Hill Fire Hall Events Center, which is is going to be across the street by the new fire hall, and the probable selling or whatever of the old fire hall. That is one of our polling place for the Russell's precinct, and therefore we need to move change the code to move to the new facility. We must do this a minimum of 60 days before the next election. I am also required, if this goes through, that I will then send letters or voter cards to all prospective voters in the Russell's precinct, letting them know of the resulting change in the location for voting.
Questions? There are none. Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Now conduct a public hearing on an amendment to the Frederick County Code, Chapter 7, Elections. Article 2, Election Precincts, Section 7.7, Precincts and respective polling places enumerated. The purpose of this proposed amendment is to relocate a polling place in the Back Creek Magisterial District, to relocate the Russell's Precinct polling place from the Round Hill Fire Hall to the Round Hill Fire Hall Event Center. Is there anyone here who would like to speak either for or against this amendment to the Frederick County Code? Seeing no one, we'll close public hearing. What's the pleasure of the board?
Mr. Chairman, I would move that we accept this recommendation.
We have a motion to approve by Supervisor Wells. Is there a second?
Second, Mr. Chairman.
Second by Supervisor Hess. Discussion.
Mr. Chairman, I'd just like to point out, although this is not without precedent in the county, the polling place will be located outside of the precinct and outside of the magisterial district. We do have at least one other polling place that is located outside of its precinct.
Any other discussion? Hearing none. Supervisor Wells.
Aye.
Supervisor Lofton.
Aye.
Supervisor DeHaven.
Aye.
Supervisor Fisher.
Aye.
Supervisor Hess.
Aye.
Supervisor Ranson.
Yes.
Chairman votes aye and the motion passes. Next is a Planning Commission public hearing ordinance amendment to the Frederick County Code, Chapter 165 zoning. I'll let you explain.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. This is a proposed revision to Part 802 of the zoning ordinance to update the text to include provisions for minor site plans as well as illustrative sketch plans. Now, minor site plans have commonly been submitted and approved by the county. However, the term has never been codified. Now, illustrative sketch plans is a new addition proposed for inclusion. Now, this would be applicable to agricultural businesses such as the farm wineries, breweries, and distilleries, as well as conditional use permits that may not need a full-blown engineered site plan. No, a minor site plan would constitute a revision to an existing structure by no more than 20% or less and does not exceed 5,000 square feet of disturbed area. The minor site plans have a reduced submission guideline. Then there's a checklist in the ordinance for that, as well as a reduced fee. Now note that the fee is already part of our adopted fee schedule. Illustrative sketch plans would not need to be sealed by an engineer. The property owner would be able to complete that exercise with staff. There's no fee associated with that plan. So the Planning Commission discussed this at their May meeting. It came before the board as a discussion at your June meeting. The Planning Commission held a public hearing on July 15th. They did recommend approval, so tonight we are seeking a decision from the board on this proposed amendment, and I would be glad to answer any questions.
Any questions to staff? Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll now conduct the public hearing on ordinance amendment to the Frederick County Code, Chapter 165 zoning, Article 8, Development Plans and Approvals, Part 802, Site Plans, Section 165-802.01, Activities Requiring Site Plans, Section 165-802.02, Site Plan Applications, Review, Section 165-802.03, Site Plan 165-802.04, Required Improvements, Article 1, General Provisions Amendments and Conditional Use Permits, Part 101, General Provisions, Section 165-101.02, Definitions and Word Usage, and finally, revisions to the zoning ordinance to update the site plan requirements. Are there anyone here who would like to speak either for or against this ordinance amendment? Seeing no one, will close public hearing. Pleasure of the board.
Mr. Chairman, I move for approval.
We have a motion by Supervisor Lawson to approve. Is there a second?
Second, Mr. Chairman.
Second by Supervisor Hess. Discussion. Hearing none. Supervisor Ranson. Yes. Supervisor Hess.
Aye.
Supervisor Fisher.
Aye.
Supervisor DeHaven.
Aye.
Supervisor Lofton.
Aye.
Supervisor Wells.
Aye.
Chair votes aye, and the ordinance amendment is approved. Next is another public hearing on an ordinance amendment to the Frederick County Code, Chapter 165 zoning, Article 4 agricultural and residential districts.
Again, thank you. This is an amendment to the ordinance zoning to update the farm winery text to include farm breweries and farm distilleries as permitted uses in the RA, which is the Rural Areas District, pursuant to the Code of Virginia. Now, the changes proposed with this, as stated, the addition of the distilleries and the breweries. There's also updated and new definitions for all the uses. There's addition of tours, as well as kitchen and catering activities, allowance for providing refreshments. Anything above light refreshments and appetizers would need to come forward as a conditional use permit for a restaurant. There's also the removal of the site plan requirement, which was originally adopted as part of the farm winery text, and we've changed that to the illustrative sketch plan requirement. And there's also a revision to the events allowance to decrease the number by right from 150 to 100 to be consistent with the county code for festival permits. Now, from the discussion, the text has been changed to remove the state code requirements, so they weren't repetitive, and that way if the state code changes, we don't have to come back forward and change our zoning ordinance. So just for clarification, what the Code of Virginia allows the wineries, distilleries, and breweries to have on site, of course, the production and harvesting of the product and the manufacturing of the beverages. It also allows for them to do their on-site tasting, sales, and consumption of the product during regular business hours. They're also allowed to have direct sales and shipment of the product to wholesalers and out-of-state purchasers. They can also store the product on site as well as sell product-related items at their facilities. So what we did, and I outlined it in the memo, the items that are in the Code of Virginia that by their regulations we have to allow them to do, and then the items included in our zoning ordinance revisions are the things we're allowing them to do above and beyond the state code requirements. So the Planning Commission held a discussion on May 20th. It came before the board as a discussion at your June 10th meeting. The Planning Commission held a public hearing at their July 15th meeting, and they did recommend approval. So tonight we are seeking a decision from the board on the proposed amendment. I would be glad to answer any questions.
Are there any questions?
Mr. Chairman,
Supervisor Lofton.
the requirement reducing the number of people 150 to 100,
Yes, sir.
does that apply to the normal course of business or for a special event at that particular venue?
It's for events. See, under Section E of that section, events shall be permitted only on the wineries, distilleries, and breweries, 10 acres or larger. Events for the purpose of the section shall include but not limited to meetings, conferences, dinners, festivals, and receptions. So it's not limiting their day-to-day tasting rooms and things like that, people coming to the site to buy and sample. It doesn't affect that. It's special events.
Now, if in fact the venue would have a separate room for events and then other rooms for the conducting just regular business activities, we're going to ask for a permit if that particular area for the event exceeds 100 people, because you could have 50 people over here and 75 people in the event center, and that would total more than 100, so.
I don't believe that we would count them together to get a total. I mean, I would believe they're going to have their day-to-day operation, which is their tasting and things like that. And then if they're going to have a festival, it would be a ticketed event, or if it was a reception, it would be a predetermined amount of guests. So if that exceeded that number.
Okay, so you don't see it impeding the normal flow of business at a venue? Okay.
Other questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Now conduct a public hearing on an ordinance amendment to the Frederick County Code, Chapter 165 zoning, Article 4, Agricultural and Residential District, Part 401, RA Rural Area District, Section 165-401.02, Permitted Uses, Article 2, Supplementary Use Regulations, Parking, Buffers, and Regulations for Specific Uses, Part 204, Additional Regulations for Specific Uses, Section 165-204.22, Farm Wineries, Article 1, General Provisions, Amendments, and Conditional Use Permits, Part 101, General Provisions, Section 165-101.02, Definitions and Word Usage. Revisions to the zoning ordinance to include wine or farm breweries, farm distilleries as permitted uses in the RA Rural Area District. Is there anyone here who would like to speak either for or against this ordinance amendment? Seeing no one, we'll close the public hearing. What's the pleasure of the board?
Chairman, I move for approval.
We have a motion by Supervisor Lofton to approve. Is there a second?
Second, Mr. Chairman.
Second by Supervisor Hess. Discussion. Hearing none. Supervisor Wells.
Aye.
Supervisor Lofton.
Aye.
Supervisor DeHaven.
Aye.
Supervisor Fisher.
Aye.
Supervisor Hess.
Aye.
Supervisor Ranson.
Yes.
Chairman votes aye and the motion passes. Next item is a public hearing on an addition to the South Frederick Agricultural and Forestry District. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. This is a 175-acre additional parcel to be added to the South Frederick Agricultural and Forestry District. The property is located along Conestoga Lane. The district itself currently has 5,845.90 acres. If this addition of 175 acres would be approved, the district will now have a total acreage of 1,020.90 acres. If I could turn to your attention to your map on your left, on the screen shows you where this proposed addition to the South Frederick Agricultural and Forestry District would be located. The Agricultural District Advisory Committee, or ADACT, unanimously recommended approval of this 175-acre parcel to be included in the 2015-2020 South Frederick Agricultural Forestry District at its June 24, 2015 meeting. This was also forwarded to the Planning Commission for a recommendation, and the Planning Commission at its July 15, 2015 meeting actually approved the unanimously recommendation for this addition to the South Frederick Agricultural Forestry District. Staff is seeking a decision from the Board of Supervisors on the addition to the South Frederick Agricultural Forestry District of this 175-acre parcel. Staff will be here to answer any questions you may have on this addition to the South Frederick Agricultural and Forestry District. Thank you.
Questions, staff? Thanks, sir. Now conduct a public hearing on an addition to the South Frederick Agricultural and Forestry District. The proposed addition is a 175 plus or minus acre tract within one parcel and is located in the Back Creek Magisterial District along Conestoga Lane. Is anyone here who would like to either speak for or against this addition to the South Frederick Agricultural and Forestry District? Seeing no one, we'll close the public hearing.
Chairman, I move for approval.
We have a motion by Supervisor Lofton to approve. Is there a second?
Second,
Mr.
Mr.
Chairman.
Chairman.
Second by Supervisor Fisher. Discussion? Hearing none. Supervisor Ranson.
Yes.
Supervisor Hess.
Aye.
Supervisor Fisher.
Aye.
Supervisor DeHaven.
Aye.
Supervisor Lofton.
Aye.
Supervisor Wells.
Aye.
Chair votes aye and the motion passes. Next is another public hearing on the 2015-2020 Agricultural and Forestal District addition of parcels less than 5 acres. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and members of the board. Just to give you a quick overview as we move along on these 46 parcels. If you recall, February of this year, we updated our ag and forestal districts for the next 5 years. At that time, the ADAC, which is our Agricultural District Advisory Committee, looked at parcels less than 5 acres that were not included in our land use program and in agricultural district. They were looking at these properties that they could place an additional burden and restrictions on adjacent properties, and that would be excessive building setbacks and eliminating an opportunity for placement of a building on a property, usually a single-family dwelling. Therefore, the ADAC recommended that such properties not be included in our ag and forestal districts at that time. Subsequently, the Board of Supervisors on May 27th of this year looked at updating, again, our ag and forestal districts, which include districts in Frederick County with a total of 11,425 acres. 46 parcels were called out, totaling 87 acres that were not included in the adoption of our ag and forestal districts. The 46 parcels that were these parcels were less than 5 acres in size, and also they're not participating in the county's land use assessment program. After the public hearing, which the Board of Supervisors at that time, you voted to renew our 8 districts. However, you believe that the 46 parcels that were not included in our ag and forestry districts be evaluated, and that the property owners would have an opportunity to participate with our ADAC, Planning Commission, and tonight at the Board of Supervisors. At your agenda package, we included a letter that we sent to the property owners that were affected, invited them to the ADAC, which met on the 24th of June 2015 to review the 46 parcels that were left out of our ag and forestal districts. 46 properties, again, were notified, and we did have 10 properties represented at the ADAC meeting, which the ADAC recommended, or comment, I should say, first before we go to recommendation, the importance of our ag districts and why some of these smaller parcels were included. Some of the reasons they were to qualify for an ag district, as you're well aware of, the basic core of an ag district has to be at least 200 acres to be even started out, but within a mile radius of any ag district, folks petition the Frederick County to go through the ADAC to come into the agricultural forestal districts. They also recognize the importance of the districts, and with that, they had staff break down the 46 parcels and organize them into 3 groups. The 3 groups, I left a paper at your desk. It's also going to be on the screen, so you kind of can read what was recommended from the ADAC and also was recommended through the the Planning Commission. If you look at the screen on your left, it kind of gives you an idea what the breakdown. Again, it's at your dais. Basically, what staff did was we looked at, work with the ADAC and the Planning Commission, looked at properties that were encompassed by an existing ag district, which is in green, and we looked at the not adjacent nor encapsulated by an existing ag district, which is in yellow. And finally, if you turn over your page that was given to you in white on your screen to the left, where properties were adjacent to an existing agricultural and forestry district. You'll notice staff has put a small star on, there's 4 stars there. Those property owners did speak at the Planning Commission when they held their meeting. With that, ultimately, the ADAC recommended approval for the inclusion of all 46 properties into the Ag and Forestal District at their meeting on June 24th. It was forwarded to the Planning Commission with that recommendation. The Planning Commission held a public hearing on July 15, 2015, and recommended that 24 parcels totaling of 46.35 acres to be added to the districts and the remaining 22 be excluded. That is also on your table right there, so you have an understanding what was looked at that time as we went through. I will point out at the ADAC meeting, all the parcels, 46 parcels that you have right now there, and also that were shown on the screen on the left, were reviewed by the ADAC at that night's meeting. They also were looked at, the minutes are included from the Planning Commission for your review, and the ADAC. The parcels that were on the white, on the back of the page you're holding, I would call the white, were looked at and reviewed by the Planning Commission, as were the other ones when they were broke down by staff. Following the public hearing tonight, Mr. Chairman, a decision for the board is requested, and that decision could be inclusion of all 46 acres, all 46 properties totaling 87 acres in the district, and that's what the ADAC recommended, that all of them come back in our district. Or we can exclude some of them on the 46 as the Planning Commission did, or we can not include any of the 46 in any district at all. Staff is here to answer any questions you may have. Obviously, there are some, I believe, some folks that were notified are probably here to speak on this proposed Ag and Forestry District amendment. Thank you.
Questions of staff?
Again, I'd like to just make sure that land use is not affected by forestal district or agricultural district or vice versa.
No, sir.
All right, the board will now conduct a public hearing on the 2015-2020 Agricultural and Forestal District addition of parcels less than 5 acres. This public hearing is to consider the addition of 46 parcels, each less than 5 acres in size, to the following districts: Alban, Apple Pie Ridge, Double Church, Redbud, South Frederick, and South Timber Ridge districts. This could add up to an additional 87 acres to the established 11,425.93 acres within the Agricultural and Forestry District program for the ensuing 5-year period. Properties that are incorporated into the Agricultural and Forestal District are guaranteed certain protection as specified in Section 15.2-4300 of the Code of Virginia. Is there anyone here who would like to speak either for or against the amendments to the 2015-2020 Agricultural and Forestal District additions? If so, would you please come forward, give your name, magisterial district, and limit your comments to 3 minutes, please.
Okay. My name is Sandra Rittenauer, and I have a property there that in the Double Church Ag and Forestal District. And I want to thank the board and the chairman and the members of the board for this opportunity once again to come and talk and be heard, to say what I believe and what I feel about it. These decisions do impact the Ag and Forestal District, which is a wonderful program. I appreciate the fact that the ADAC, you know what that is, has been appointed with the role of representing farming and other ag interests. And their recommendation that all 46 plots be returned to the ag district where they have been for many years, I agree with that. I think they should all be returned. I do. I hope you will take that as those are the people that are made up, they're farmers, they understand what's going on. One of my concerns is that this may be the beginning of diminishing the value of the district. If you pick and choose people who've been in there, they want to stay in there, but yet you want to take them out. And the criteria that was used to bring this about still seems somewhat irrelevant to me. And I'm not trying to diminish that. I'm just saying it didn't matter in the first place, so why did it matter now? So we don't want this to lead to less protection in the future, as well as preventing inclusion of any new small agricultural concerns or farms in the future, because many farms and agricultural concerns of the future will be very small. And you can grow and produce many things on a very small amount of property. So anyway, the facts of this, how this happened, the facts of the way this happened, leaves me feeling somewhat uneasy about what might be the future of the Ag District 5 years from now or perhaps 10 years from now. So I would prefer and wish that the board would add all 46 parcels back in. Thank you very much.
Next.
My name is Paul Anderson. I'm here mainly to speak for the Ag District. I'm past president of Farm Bureau, and we represent quite a few farmers, and a lot of them have the land in the Ag District. I was, along with Gary DeOhms and 4 other farmers, helped set up the first Ag District. The Ag District was not set up to get land use. It does say in the ordinance that you are eligible for land use if it's available and if it qualifies. Now, in Frederick County, if it's under 5 acres, it does not qualify for land use, but it's still agricultural land. I have some parcels that I rent that are very productive agricultural parcels that are under land use. They do not qualify for land use taxation, but they are agriculture. The people who join a lot of your parcels are in agriculture districts when it was first set up because they supported agriculture, they wanted to protect agriculture, and they had agricultural land. It might not have been very big, but it was agricultural land. If you look in the very last part of that paper you got there, it says that land use does give farmers some extra protection because in the past there was a lot of cases where people were not concerned, where people didn't like the noises of animals spraying the trees at nighttime, different things, and they bring lawsuits against the farmers or cause all kinds of problems. With the land use, with the ag districts, this is something that has been almost put to under, and we don't have to worry about it. Now, there are some comments saying that, well, there are some parcels of land that's close to the agriculture district that might be able to be developed because of this. And it's too expensive for them to go through the process of having something change as far as setbacks. Well, what do you think about the farmers when you start having houses come in close to ag land, the amount of money we have to put out to protect ourselves? Maybe the thing is not to change the ag districts, but change the setbacks. Originally, the setbacks were 200 feet in orchards where it was spraying, 100 feet on all other agricultural land. I don't have any idea when that changed, but now it's 200 feet totally. I have no problem with houses being 100 feet from my property. This here helps mainly if somebody wants to put a subdivision in next to farmland, the 100 feet setback. I sat on a committee some time ago. I was asked to sit on a committee, a long-range planning committee, and I was asked to sit on the one for agriculture. And one of the things we mentioned in that report, that agriculture is changing, and it's going to change drastically. And what we had in reports, you all approved on. But I would think you take a long, hard look at this and at these pieces of parcels, and before you turn them out.
Next.
My name's Gary Oates. I'm in the Stonewall District. I'm here tonight to support all 46 properties. I was at the ADAC meeting. I could not be at the Planning Commission. I was setting trusses in a barn that night. But I don't know why staff, unless it was directed by the board, decided to start singling out these parcels. Because if it was a problem with setbacks, as Mr. Anderson just said, it could have been a simple ordinance change. Instead, we've upset a lot of people that have been in an ag district for over 30 years. Of the parcels that were taken out or recommended to be taken out by the Planning Commission, I went to the first one on the list that was closest to my property, which is Jeff Jenkins. You go down and look at that particular piece of property, there's 2 large pole sheds, tractors, roll bales sitting around, firewood. All of his ag equipment sits there. Granted, it's less than 5 acres, but it's being used for ag. So to be able to sit here and look at an aerial photo and pass judgment on whether or not somebody's truly a farmer or whether or not they're farming their land the way you think it needs to be done is ludicrous. Farmer likes nothing better than somebody to come out from behind a desk and tell him how to do his farming project. So I would support that. In regards to the 200-foot setback, I can speak on that. That was Kent Barley and Dudley Ranker. They have some parcels of 2 acres. It's in orchard. Mr. Barley had some trees taken out one year. They planted it in corn to rebound the ground before the next set of trees came in. Well, during that time, a house got built right against this property because the setback reduced because the apple trees weren't there. So that's why the ag district setback went to 200 feet to protect the orchardist. So that 2 or 3 years when they take those trees out before they replant, they can still keep that buffer on the property. That was the purpose. If the real heartburn is that someone can't develop the property because there's an ag district next to them, and you want to look at reducing a setback for, say, 2 acres or less for parcels in the ag district, I understand that. May not agree with it, but I could understand that. But that would be a simple ordinance change, to take all these people, like I said, some have been in an ag district for over 30 years, and now start picking and choosing, I think is wrong. The state doesn't have a minimum lot size. If we're an ag-friendly community, I'm surprised that we're looking at doing it. Thank you.
Anyone else?
My name is George Hughes. I live in the Gainesboro district. And I understand both sides of the program here. One is a 5-acre piece in the middle of otherwise developed area is pretty near impossible to maintain agricultural and without having people in here constantly complaining. But by the other token is that for every square inch that we don't allow development, we save ourselves thousands of dollars in unexpected price costs, schools, roads, all kinds of things that we don't really need to add. And that's my feeling on it. I just feel that whatever we do to keep agriculture as a viable commodity in this county will be to the benefit of everybody. Thank you.
Anyone else? Last call.
Are we talking just about, are we talking about all of them, or are we just talking about?
All 46 parcels are under consideration at this public hearing.
Well, it's in Back Creek listed in this one, is that?
Pardon me? If you come up, what did you want to speak about or were interested in speaking about? Maybe I can help.
I wasn't sure. I thought they were talking about the others. My name is John Toney, Mr. Chairman, Board of Supervisors. Here tonight, I'm representing the trust of H.B. Alexander and Darcy Alexander. I have a plat provided by Greenway. Right here is the woods that belong to the Carter Hall property. The Carter Hall property is on the other side of the road. If you'll notice, on the other side of the road is all open space. It's currently in hay and pasture. The dark area is woods and rocky, not much agricultural use. The problem comes in, if you'll notice, the lot to the backside up here is a 1.46 acre lot, and if he's not in the ag use, you've taken 200-foot arc here, there is a buildable lot. Now you can see in this area here, it looks almost like a cornucopia, that there's a building spot. The trust really doesn't want to sell this property, but due to high medical costs for Mrs. Alexander, it is necessary to sell. She's in 4 stages of Alzheimer's, and they've pretty well gone through their life savings. Mr. Alexander, who served Merchant Marine, was not offered VA benefits until 1988 because the Department of DOD did not recommend that they be covered. By the time he got it, he was scared to go to VA center. He was afraid they'd put him in it. So he's gone through all of his funds to do so, to take care of himself. I asked the board to look at the adjoining 1.46 acres as a residence and a shop to work on on the road tractors. The Earharts do have the first right of refusal to buy the property. The problem is they want the land to keep anything from being built beside them, and so it's not as worth as much to them. To them, the lot's probably worth $25,000 to $30,000, if that. To us, it's worth $75,000 to as much as $80,000. We would ask, we would consider a lower figure if we didn't have to plat, and list the property for sale. We appreciate the separation from active agriculture from the adjoining non-ag lots. When I sold my land further up the road years ago, I required the lots facing the orchard across the street to be at least 200 foot off the road. At that time, there was no frontage setback, and I understood spray material is going to drift. But this is a residence and a garage. It's not active agriculture. And in our estimation, we owe. Am I done? Yeah.
Thanks, sir. Anyone else?
Joyce Earhart. I live in the Back Creek District. We were penalized for being taken out of the Ag District because we weren't in land use, but you're not required to be in land use to be part of the Agricultural District. So it's hard to understand why we were taken out. We are an owner with a small parcel and a larger parcel that border, and we want both our parcels in the district to support agriculture. Due to the nature of agricultural operations, it is important to have buffers. Chemical spray is used on crops and apples, and weather affects harvesting, and farmers don't operate on 9 to 5 hours. The majority of the bordering properties are currently being used for agriculture. There's apple orchards, crop raisings of wheat and soybeans, beef cattle, and corn was grown in the past. You can grow crops or have an orchard on a small or large parcel. And I didn't find anything in the state code about minimum lot sizes. We respectfully request to our property to be put back in or remain part of the South Frederick Agricultural District. And yes, we would like to have privacy. Is anything wrong with privacy? You hear on the news all the time problems with noise, smells, pets, and property among neighbors. Thank you.
Anyone else? Seeing no, we'll close the public hearing. Questions to staff on the public hearing?
Yes, sir. If it were not for the lots being in the agricultural district, what would the setback requirement be?
Currently, our setback requirements in the RA zoning district, which were amended, if you recall, in 2007 and also in 2011, if you have 6 acres or less, your side and rear setback is 50 feet. If you're more than 6 acres, you're at 100 feet, your side and rear. And if you're in an agricultural forestal district and orchard, you're at 200. Your front setback from a main road is actually 60 feet, so the 200 doesn't apply to the front setback. That's what your ordinance currently states.
I'd just like to suggest at the appropriate time that we ask staff to bring us back a revision to the code to change it so that lots of 5 acres or less have the normal setback requirement for an RA district of 50 feet.
Not sure I totally understood what you just said.
If it is a lot that it's in the ag district that is less than 5 acres, that the setback requirement on adjoining property be 50 feet.
That, isn't the 50 feet less than what's?
Oh, that's what he said was.
Again, if it's 6 acres or less, you're 50 side and rear today.
6 acres or less is 50 side and rear?
That's correct. Yes, sir, Mr. Wells. If you're above 6 acres, you're at 100. And what we're looking at tonight, also you have your agriforestal districts in orchards are 200. Mr. Hess is suggesting that if you're if you're a lot less than 6 acres in the ag district, near an ag district, you would go by the 50-foot rear and side setback.
Yes, sir.
If I'm correct with that.
You said the adjoining property, not the lot.
It would be the lot that we're talking now. It's adjacent to an ag district.
Wouldn't matter how big the adjoining lot was, it would have to be reduced to
This
a
would be,
50-foot setback.
I don't mean to interrupt. Yeah. Which,
I'm sure that's what he meant.
also, I would suggest if we're going to have staff look at this, that we look at existing lots, not lots that are coming in, not, because your agriforestal districts, as you're well aware of, is renewed every 5 years, so they're going to be reviewed either way. But existing lots today, the cure, if board desires, what we're talking about tonight, these 46 parcels, they're existing lots as we're looking at today, which would be 50 feet side and rear.
I was just trying to understand who you were saying had the setback, and I'm not sure I got it straight.
The setback requirement on the adjoining property would be 50 feet.
If I join a lot less than 5 acres,
If the
then I
lot,
only
if the
need
lot that's in the ag district is 6 acres or less, the setback requirement for the adjoining lot be 50 feet.
Right.
Rather than 200.
Right.
Rather than 200, which you currently have now.
Conflict, though, depending on what is in that ag district? I'm just,
That's,
you have you're going to have to look at that, aren't you? Because that has a conflict if it has orchard or,
and I think what we could do, if the board desires for staff to take this and study it, I think you're right, Mr. Fisher, would have to look at all options there, but it's a starting
Are
point.
you speaking to the same point that Paul was trying to make? Or do you know?
I
I think Paul was speaking of the 100-foot setback that was there before, 200, 100, and now everything's 200. And he's saying I wouldn't have any problem going back to I think, to the 100, 200.
Well, because I'm just looking for an answer for the setback requirement on adjoining lots, and it would seem logical and easy to me to go back to what you normally have in an RA district.
I think, Mr. Chairman, if I could offer, if I'm understanding what Mr. Hess is saying, I think another way to state it would be that if you are in the ag district and your parcel is under 5 acres, then the provision that ag districts have a 200-foot buffer around them would not apply on parcels of 5 acres or less that are in the ag district. So that those small parcels are not imposing upon adjoining properties that aren't in the ag district a building restriction beyond what's normally in the RA.
So
okay.
It sounds interesting, but what does the person in the ag district get then for being in the ag district?
They're promoting agriculture, which they stated here by a number of the people who spoke, that it was to support agriculture.
If they were after the greater setback, they would lose that.
Well, they're still free to conduct agricultural operations on their property.
You just could have somebody 50 feet away from them.
Yeah. And the person purchasing or owning that adjacent parcel would be aware that the property's in the ag district.
Mr. Chairman, 2 questions to staff. Currently, if someone's property is in the ag district, if in fact a property owner adjacent to them finds their lot unbuildable or undevelopable, what recourse does that other owner have?
Yeah, a property owner could ask for the reduced setbacks through our Board of Zoning Appeals, which would be an application fee, which would cost $400 to be heard at the Board of Zoning Appeals. It's not a guarantee that they would get that reduced setback.
Secondly, if we would take no action tonight on this, what would be the net result for anyone who is kind of hanging in limbo? Do they lose any kind of benefit if they are not included in the ag district right now?
I'm not going to say they would lose any benefit, but one of the scenarios that staff has put out for the board to answer your question, that you can accept all this, you accept it in, And we can clean up what Mr. Hess was, take it back to our committees to change, if your desire, change the setbacks. So it's either you have the three scenarios you have right there. Problem we have, it would be a problem, or a problem that we have now is that your ag and forestry districts run in a 5-year cycle. So if these 46 people were out now, we reviewed it again to see if they're going to come in to add that acreage. That could be a little dicey.
From what respect? Why would it be a problem?
Just because right now we have the date, or date certain, 5 years, we're going to come back and look at this. You approved it, your 8 districts back on the 27th. These parcels, were left out. We reviewed them. The 3 options we have in front of you, and I'm not saying it's the options you have, but the 3 options are, you can include all of them in your ag district recommendation right now. We could go back, we meaning staff, could go back, work on changing the ordinance so we don't run into this down the road in the future. Or you could keep these 46 out and we change things and have them come back in.
What would happen, though, with those lots if we included them all and then we changed the code? Would those existing circumstances be subject to the changed code? Or would that not apply until the renewal of the ag district in 2020?
We would change our ordinance. You're looking at 2 paths here. One, you would change the ordinance. So yes, it may or may not affect some of the properties. As we come back in 2020, we're looking at that. We've already got the setback. So for instance, the last gentleman was up here on the building thing. Because it's a building issue, what we're kind of looking at is what the ADAC looked at. So today, you accept the 46 parcels in here. We change the ordinance. The ordinance puts the setbacks, how it's written. It comes back in front of the board. You endorse it. Whenever that was endorsed at that time, it would go with these properties at countywide.
It would affect those properties at that time, and it doesn't have to wait until the renewal.
That's correct.
I'm sorry, I think I heard what you told Mr. Hess, but if these 46 were to be included and staff was directed to look at how provisions could be made to the ordinances as they apply to setbacks, when a board would, say, adopt those particular provisions, do these 46 then come back in for review?
No.
Or wait 5 years before they come back into review?
5 years, Mr. Lofton.
So any impact?
They are subject to the setback,
Right.
new setback requirements apply.
Does that have to be approved by the board ultimately?
Yes, if the board what I hear is if the board approves a change to the ordinance, we'd have to go through the public hearing process. Those setback requirements would then apply to lots that are under consideration here without having to wait, and maybe council needs to weigh in on this, that we wouldn't have to, or an adjoining property owner wouldn't have to wait until 2020 on renewal of property.
The setback ordinance change would be effective immediately upon its adoption.
Thank you.
By the board.
Mr. Chairman.
How long do you think that process might take?
It would probably take, we'd probably be back in front of you with something written, probably, I would guess 3 months, because as you know, it has to go through our committees and an endorsement from the Planning Commission. And then ultimately here would be the final public discussion, public hearings. Almost what we just did earlier with the ordinance change on our site plan.
So we're talking about a
Look at
minimum
3
3-month window?
Give or take.
Mr. Chairman.
Supervisor Fisher.
It's not clear to me what the process was on these small parcels, but let me run something by you. Right now, none of these 46 parcels are in the ag district, correct? They expired.
That is correct.
All right, somebody buys this 2.5 acre buildable lot. And then at some point, that small parcel next to it gets put in the ag district. What happens to the building right of that person?
they are affected by the 200-foot setback.
And my question goes, I'm really not looking for an answer. My question goes back to the fact, you take away somebody's right to build on a piece of property, that decision had to be made, as I understand it, that road was in existence for a long time. And that's always been a buildable lot under the technical definition because it was separated from the main parcel of the other farm. So at some point, some decision, some process went through that said, yep, we're going to put this in, and that negates your ability to develop this piece here. So that's what I'm saying. I'm a little bit unclear what the criteria is for some of these small lots, because it bothers me that you can take somebody's right away from them. At least that's my thinking right now. That's the way I'm looking at it.
Well, and again, I'll give you a short answer. A lot of our smaller acreage, as I pointed out in the beginning, and I think one of the speakers pointed out when they set up an agricultural and forest interest, and it's kind of going to lean back to what your point out, Mr. Fisher, was that the core, again, is 200, but if you're within that mile radius and you're interested in getting a district, that's what happens. And again, consequences are what you just pointed out, that, yeah, you...
And I don't mean to imply anybody did anything to take it away. It's the way things change. Because we're in a constant mode of change, and actions taken years ago, years later, you go, well, geez, what did we do that for? Or it didn't turn out like we thought it would, or it turned out to be something else. So that's just why the process is what I'm curious about, I guess.
Mr. Chairman, let me kind of go back to Mr. Fisher's point there. I'm looking at one of the parcels that they're recommended taking out. They're in the ag district. It is not near or adjacent to any other ag district property. On either side, there are 2 to 3 lots. Now, the setback's kind of sketchy because if you look at the 200-foot setback requirement on the one side of that property, 2.5 lots are affected. But as I understand it, it only goes 1 lot deep adjacent to the property. But on that 1 lot adjacent to that property, if that person wanted to add on to their existing residence, they just can't do that, can they?
As it would stand now with the 200 feet, no, but I kind of want to if I can caveat that a little bit. Remember, and just to throw it out, that we have a vested rights policy in Frederick County, the Commonwealth of Virginia. The parcel that you may be talking about, if it has a 50-foot setback today, we have to abide by whether it's an ag district, was added later, that 200 foot's there, you have to go by what's on the plat. So that's why the question's kind of, if it doesn't have anything on the plat, then yes, you're correct, you can't add on.
Some of those older lots do not have setbacks assigned to them.
Correct.
So that person adjacent to this lot who's in the ag district where there is no agricultural activity at all, and probably never will be, the person next door, what process do they have to go through to add on to their house?
They would have to go through the Frederick County Board of Zoning Appeals to ask them for a reduced setback.
$400 fee, go through the process of getting that buffer changed, setback changed.
And it may or may not be approved.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. A personal position here, see if it helps anybody. I don't know if I'm ready to put only 24 in the ag district or all 46, and then still get to the issue of the setbacks. Personally, I know I want to do something. I'm trying to weigh in there whether it's 24 or 46, and
I'd like to suggest.
Possibly it might be slightly contingent on what the ultimate decision is on the setback.
Yeah, well, but that's regardless of whether they're in or not, the setback is going to take effect. If it makes it any easier for anybody, the staff has divided the
lots up into 3 sections, as we see. Perhaps maybe as part of the motion, or perhaps we can take this in 3 separate parts, if that makes it any easier for folks.
We'll give it a try. What would you like to suggest?
I'd like to first suggest that the parcels identified as being encapsulated by an existing ag district be approved for inclusion in the forestal, agricultural and forestal districts.
We have a second by Supervisor DeHaven. Discussion. Hearing none. Supervisor Ranson.
Yes.
Supervisor Hess.
Aye.
Supervisor Fisher.
Aye.
Supervisor DeHaven.
Aye.
Supervisor Lofton.
Aye.
Supervisor Wells.
Aye.
Chair votes aye and the motion passes.
Next, I'd like to move that the parcels not adjacent nor encapsulated by an ag district not be included.
That they what? What did you say?
Not be included.
That would take a motion.
Okay.
They're not there. Is that it?
To be honest with you, it doesn't make, I don't care one way or another on the part. I was just trying to get the process started.
Yeah.
If we want to approve that batch 2, it's fine with me. Because it's not going to change the ultimate solution we're looking for. There's obviously no guarantee we're going to change the setbacks, but it doesn't change the potential course of action regarding setbacks. If we don't change the setbacks, we've still got the same problem. If we change the setbacks, we're going to solve it regardless of whether these parcels are approved for inclusion or not inclusion in the agricultural districts tonight.
Do you have any further recommendations on inclusions? There are 13 parcels on the back of the page that were recommended to be included.
I'd recommend approval.
Okay, we have a motion to include the 13 yeses on the back of the sheet in the ag district. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Supervisor Lofton. Discussion.
Mr. Chairman, are we, I'm getting confused, and they just didn't hear well on the first one.
You did the green.
We approved all of these. Am I correct? That's what I thought. Okay. We're not here. We're over here.
So if this motion passes, we will have voted yes on the Planning Commission's recommendation.
Well, I'm not sure that whether that was my intent or not. When I said that batch, I meant the entire batch.
Oh, everything, I'm sorry. Okay, then that was not, my apologies. All 19.
That are adjacent to existing ag
Second.
districts.
Does it agree with that?
No.
Sorry, I didn't understand.
His motion was all those that are encapsulated by existing ag districts.
That was the first one, yeah.
That was the first one. We dealt with that one. Now we're on this page?
And I thought he only wanted the yeses, but he meant all of them.
Well, there was some question raised by one of the commenters tonight about whether the process was rather arbitrary to include or not include some of those lots. And again, as I say, the solution doesn't go away, or the problem doesn't go away until we change the setbacks.
Motion.
So
Is it all 19 on the back?
I'm going to withdraw the motion.
Put them in, you can still make a motion.
I move to approve all 19 on the back to be included in the,
Mr. Ranson makes a motion to include all 19 on the back, they're on the screen, in the ag district. Is there a second to that motion? All right, I feared the motion dies for lack of a second. Is there another motion? DeHaven.
Give it a shot, Mr. Chairman. I would move that we direct staff to look at all the potential consequences of what we discussed earlier, which was any lot adjoining an agricultural district lot, those setbacks would not be 200, but would be 50, which is in the rest of RA, adjoining lots that are less than 5 acres or less. That they come back with a recommendation after they've thoroughly investigated all the potential impacts.
I have no problem with that. That's the 60, 90-day process that we're probably looking at. What I'm fishing for here, are there any other lots that we want to put in the ag district tonight?
I'll defer my discussion till later.
Any motion?
I'll try again, even though I had changed that motion. I'll move that the 13 lots that were approved by the Planning Commission be
Motion to
included.
include the 13 yeses on the screen in the ag district. Is there a second? I believe you thought you seconded that last.
Second.
Second? We have a second. Discussion.
Again, Mr. Chairman, I just, looking at these aerials is not sufficient for me to base a decision on, and I'm afraid that's what the Planning Commission did, it looks like. Again, the logic on some of them, I just can't find what it is, and I'm just not. Put them in or take them out. Some of them, I mean,
Make sure it's both
I look at these yeses, and it doesn't seem to be that consistent. Some of them show housing already around us, so the 200-foot buffer is kind of irrelevant, unless somebody wants to add on, then it's probably going to catch them. But I just don't see, the process bothers me. I don't see a consistency in what that process was, and looking at these aerials, I don't believe is quite the way it ought to be done.
No. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? We need to vote on it.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, comment, after the ADAC meeting, I was talking to some of the members of that committee. Even though they put all 46 back in, there was concern about the negative impacts on some adjacent properties, but they didn't feel like they should be addressing that particular evening. And in talking with some of the Planning Commission members after the Planning Commission meeting, where they discussed it, they had the same concerns. And so I hear Mr. Fisher loud and clear. I'm not sure I like the process. I certainly think it needs to be changed because of the potential negative impact on some property owners. It amounts to a taking of somebody's land, really. And I have a problem with that. So,
Well, you know, I don't know how solid the greens were, but if it's a 90-day, if you wanted to postpone all of the decisions until you get your buffer issue back before you in 90 days, I don't know why, Mr. Williams, they couldn't do that. Keep it open.
If I understood correctly, are you suggesting that the board,
We have put, by motion, the green ones back in. Anything else that's on the sheet, if they wanted to postpone that decision until the buffer issue went through public hearing and got back to them so that they knew what it is that they, how they were affecting adjacent, could they not do that? The postponement can be for 90 days, could it not?
that's correct?
Staff can get back in 90 days? Is this a possible solution?
We can get back and get your answers in 90 days. You have to make a decision. We can get you answers within 90 days on the setbacks and
Well, I would be hoping that we could do, if we were going to do anything with the setback, that we could complete that action within the 90 days. Can we do that?
we can do that.
And then you would have comfort to know what you wanted to put in or didn't, perhaps. But if there's a better idea out there, somebody speak up.
Mr. Chairman, I think what you're saying is a good idea. I've been listening. I've gotten a little off track maybe by some of the comments at the other end of the table. But my thoughts coming in, and my thoughts still are, we had the 46 lots. We had them in there, varying sizes. I'd like to see those stay. I'd like to see some adjustments to the setback regulations. I'm not sure whether it's 50 feet or 100 feet, but that's where I'm at on it. And if that takes another 90 days for us to be comfortable with the setbacks, I'm fine with that. But I want my position to be known that I'm in favor of the ones that are there, that have been there, stay there. Maybe in the future, ones who want in are looked at differently.
But we haven't tried that motion yet, if you want to try it.
Can I, with Department of Redundancy Department, I'd like to withdraw my motion and offer a substitute motion that we postpone consideration of the lots listed in yellow and in white for 90 days.
All right, now I've lost track of myself. Did we not vote on your motion?
No.
No, we did not.
I'll withdraw the second. I'll withdraw my second.
We're in discussion.
Is that motion?
Okay, well, I accept your withdrawal. of the motion and the second. And now your motion is to,
Defer action on the remaining lots for 90 days.
okay, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Supervisor Lofton. Discussion.
A motion not to do anything?
Pardon me?
Do we really need a motion not to do anything?
I think it,
I think we built a pyramid here where it was decision time, and I think to not do anything is a no. I think to say you're going to postpone the vote means it'll come back up for sure.
I would agree.
Application.
Mr. Williams, you,
No, I think the motion's in proper stead because we do have, the board has applications in essence before it to take an action, and ordinarily when the board defers, it actually defers it by motion.
any other discussion?
Just a comment, Mr.
Sure.
Chairman. And that is that these small lots do no harm if you solve the setback issue.
I'm going to get to that next.
Yeah.
That's right.
Ready to vote? All right, Supervisor Wells, postpone for 90 days the remaining list.
Aye.
Supervisor Lofton.
Aye.
Supervisor DeHaven.
Aye.
Supervisor Fisher.
Aye.
Supervisor Hess.
Aye.
Supervisor Ranson.
Yes.
Chairman votes aye and the motion passes. Now, let's do something to give staff some direction, either by consensus or motion, to proceed with potential setback code changes. Does staff have a recommendation on how they'd like to receive that from the board or council?
Eric can speak to that. I think it's actually pretty clear.
Yeah, we heard enough about setbacks, so what we'll do is we'll take it through the DRRC, show them the information if we reduce the setbacks to 50 feet.
Nobody thinks the board needs to take any further action?
I don't think so.
The board is content.
I guess I don't see in this process, if there was a set set of reasoning or criteria to put the property into the ag district. I mean, was it just flip a coin and we did it, or did we just like ag districts? Because I suspect years and years ago, we thought the ag district was good and we stick it in just because somebody wanted to be in there. It was a good thing. I'm just curious if what that process is. Obviously, the committee said yes to everything. The planning commission said no to some, and not clear what those real differences were. There's some, like if it's in the middle of an already ag district, I can understand, but what were those processes?
If we can do it for you, Mr. Fisher, how about if we put a memo together that identifies the process and the criteria, and we'll just get it to you on a Friday mailing so you can understand what the Ag District Committee adopted to guide general
what the
principles and
committee
policies.
used for their selection process, yeah.
We can put that
That's what
together
I'd like to know what it was.
All right, are we where we want to be here? Is everybody comfortable?
Yeah, assuming that staff's going to be able to get this to us within the 90 days.
They believe so.
Yeah.
Are we finished with that subject? And we will move on to an update of House Bill 2. Mr. Bishop.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. As you are very well aware, I'm sure, we have been undergoing a fairly lengthy process involving not only the implementation of House Bill 2, but subsequent actions that tie in fairly tightly to it. To begin with, it's not just about House Bill 2. It's about VTrans 2040, which is a statewide transportation plan, and House Bill 1887, which was passed subsequent to House Bill 2 as a funding mechanism for that instrument. Key takeaways that you have. Firstly, to apply for a project in House Bill 2, it has to have been identified as a need in VTrans 2040. Now, VTrans 2040 You know, we had a VTrans 2030, we had a VTrans 2020. Big difference with VTrans 2040 is now VDOT cares what localities have to say. So that's a pretty big improvement for us, frankly, because when we've dealt with previous iterations of VTrans, the statewide transportation plan, input from localities and seeking of that input has been cursory at best. However, it's been very aggressive this time. I've been to more meetings on VTrans 2040 than I've been to any previous VTrans plan combined. They really have worked hard to get our input. Now, does that mean we're going to get where we need to be at the end of the day? I can't say that I know the answer to that because as I deal with the consultants doing VTrans 2040, as I deal with staffers at VDOT trying to help put together all the rules for House Bill 2, everybody's running around like their hair's on fire. It's a concerning process to watch from where I'm sitting. So projects have to be located within one of the following areas. Corridors of statewide significance. For us, that's mostly I-81. However, it's not just that corridor. There's a boundary around that. So for instance, an important project on Route 11 could still qualify under that corridors of statewide significance standard. Regional networks, once again, these are defined in VTrans 2040. Improvements to promote urban development areas, those aren't as clearly defined in VTrans 2040. We obviously have an urban development area. The state based their urban development area legislation on Frederick County. We're fairly well vested on that front. However, I'm not very clear, I admit, on the details of how they're going to define a project that benefits an urban development area. I think it's going to be something more than just it's a project that's in an urban development area. Or addresses an identified safety need, which frankly, that's something we've dealt with for a long time. But the important thing is if you don't meet one of these categories, you can't even get in the front door to be screened for House Bill 2, which is very critical. How it's funded. House Bill 8 is House Bill 1887. Now, it's important to note that 1887 itself doesn't become effective until 2021. So we're still operating under the old 40-30-30, which was adopted in 1986. For those who recall, previous to the most recent tax increase for transportation, that was actually the last time a gas tax had been increased for transportation in the Commonwealth. But it hadn't really changed that much. We've gone from 40-30-30 to we have state of good repair, 45%, high priority projects, meaning statewide high priority projects, 27.5%, and district grant programs, 27.5%. In the meantime, they're basically going 50-50. So until 2021 kicks in and we get to that 45, 27.5, 27.5, we're going 50-50 projects, statewide high priority, or district grant programs. State of good repair funds and House Bill 2 funds. In Stanton District for next 6-year program for House Bill 2, we're talking district-wide about $39 million. We are not talking about a lot of money. State of good repair, we're not talking about much either, $26.1 million. Now, state of good repair, you may default and think, oh, those are maintenance dollars. It's not necessarily true. Those are deficient bridges, things like that. The project that I could draw the cleanest line to in our area for a state of good repair project, exit 313. You've got a bridge in dire need of upgrade and that sort of thing. That's a project where you would be able to dip into probably a few pots of money, and one of those is state of good repair. However, many of our road improvement projects, we're going to be looking at only the House Bill 2, the district grant money, that $39 million, unless we can get it designated as a statewide high priority project, which is, that's tough. We've been through that process before. They call it a different name, but that's where we've been. Moving on. What funds are subject to House Bill 2? There's all kinds of money that you've heard about before that we haven't necessarily gotten. Congestion mitigation, air quality, like they get in Richmond, Hampton Roads, and Northern Virginia. We didn't get that before. We're not going to get it now. It's not part of House Bill 2. Other things that are exempted, asset management, something that we also haven't really dealt with. Revenue sharing funds, which we've talked a little bit about. They're cutting back. Regional revenues for areas that have authorities, such as Hampton Roads and Northern Virginia. CMAQ already mentioned. Highway safety federal funds, that's still a separate grant program. And transportation alternatives funding, which some of you may be more familiar with by its old name, which was enhancement grants. A lot of different type of eligible projects. For highways, we're talking about widening, operational improvements. Operation can mean everything from a new signal to things like transportation demand management, highway signage that routes you away from an accident, things like that, and access management, which we often focus on as safety projects. Transit and rail capacity expansion, transportation demand management, van pools, park and ride, telecommuting, passenger rail. I apologize, I'm trying to go fast. I know it's a little late for you all, and there's a lot of information here. So if at any point you feel like you need to stop me, just, reach out and stop me. Specifically excluded types under the House Bill 2. Remember, we're talking House Bill 2 and not the State of Good Repair, which I mentioned earlier. Structurally deficient bridges. They've got their own pot of money as well. Reconstructive paving. That's really a maintenance project. Routine maintenance, kind of like reconstructing pavement, and transit and rail state of good repair projects also. Measurement and scoring. You may recall from early on, there's some specific categories. Once again, only projects that are identified in VTrans 2040 can be prioritized, can even be scored. That's hence my concern for how hard and how fast they're working on VTrans 2040. Once again, corridors of statewide significance, regional networks, improvements to promote urban development areas, and address the safety need from a VTrans needs assessment. There are 5, for us, scoring categories: congestion mitigation, economic development, accessibility, safety, environmental quality. Those are what the categories have been since the legislation was written. Those are outlined in the legislation. There's another one for land use, does not apply to our area, and that's as noted for types A and B. Those are in Northern Virginia, Hampton Roads, parts of Richmond. House Bill 2 does require that benefits be compared to cost. As I go on, there's some catches in there that you're going to be interested to hear about. But basically, you're going to go through and you're going to get your score put together. That's going to get compared to the cost. So all your benefits are going to come out of those 5 categories I mentioned before. That's got to be compared with a cost estimate, and that's where the rubber really is going to meet the road, pun intended. Those results are then provided to the CTB for actual choice. You may recall I came to you a couple months ago talking about what category we should be in, and you made a recommendation. That recommendation was accepted by the CTB, so we are within the MPO portion of Frederick County. We are Category C, and within our rural areas, we are Category D. As you look at the rest of the map for Stanton District, see we've got a lot in common with the rest of the communities in the Stanton District. MPO's areas tend to be Cs, and the rural areas tend to be Ds. I think this will work to our benefit. Remains to be seen, but that's our hope at this time. Once again, I'm not going to reiterate. We've got our 5 categories that we want to worry about. The last one's marked out because we don't have to worry about them. Specifically, as far as each category is measured, safety, half the score is expected reduction in total fatalities. Half the score is expected reduction in severe injuries. And then half the score is expected reduction in the rate of fatalities and severe injuries per 100 million vehicle miles traveled. So you're scoring the same thing twice. I don't know why. That's what they came up with. Congestion mitigation, half the score is the change in the peak period, person throughput on the corridor for the project. Half the score is changing the amount of peak period person hours of delay in the project corridor. Similar, but different. Key weakness, in my opinion, to this category is the fact that as you consider many of our projects, the Russell 150 bridge, exit 310 over to 522. Those are both great examples of projects that are going to help out delay greatly in other areas, such as at 277, such as at exit 313. Doesn't factor into the scoring. Big weakness. Benefit to us is congestion mitigation is a very, very small part of our scoring. But it's big weakness in that category. Measuring accessibility. 60% of the score is a change in cumulative job accessibility within 45 minutes or within 60 minutes for transit projects. 20% of the score is change in cumulative job accessibility for disadvantaged population. That's sort of a environmental justice piece, if you will, for those familiar with NEPA requirements. And 20% of the score, assessment of the project support for connections between modes and promotion of multiple transportation choices. So getting people out of the car, onto transit, getting trucks off the roads, onto rails, things like that. Environmental quality, half the score is potential of the project to reduce criteria air pollutant and greenhouse gas emissions, and half the score is potential impacts to natural and cultural resources. So we don't get hit as much on the environmental stuff since way back when we were a maintenance area. When we first became an MPO, we've been cleared of that status for many years now. So we probably are looking more at habitat, historical, things like that. Economic development. This is our biggest scoring category, whether you're talking about our C area or our D area. This is our biggest grouping. 60% of the score, assessment of progress made towards new economic development, new and expansion of existing. 20% of the score is to rate projects based on the extent to which the project is deemed to enhance access to critical intermodal locations, interregional freight movement, and or freight-intensive industries. That's where our focus and coordination with the inland ports is going to be a pretty big deal. 20% of the score is the project's impact to travel time reliability. So reliability means predictability, if you will. You know, if it's going to take me 20 minutes to get from A to B today, I'd like it to take that same time tomorrow, the next day, and the day after that, as opposed to one event. All of a sudden, one day's got me back 2 hours, and another day it's got me an hour late, that sort of thing. Now, we believe it has been resolved recently, but there was a fairly key concern in one of the economic development scoring categories, which we did bring to our Commonwealth Transportation member, which basically kind of gave you a 0 if you didn't have an approved site plan for a site. And it was really, from what connections at VDOT tell me, based on the fact that the folks who were coming up with the score were really worried about build it and they will come type scenarios. The problem is whoever came up with an approved site plan as a requirement for getting points for an economic development toward a project you're trying to get funded by the state has no understanding of the local development process, because you simply don't get site plans based on what ifs. If you have a site plan, they've approved, they've spent all that money and done all that work, they're coming, whether the road's there or not. So in terms of applying for a road to aid economic development, it's wasted on the guy that's already coming, in my opinion. So we believe that's been resolved, but that was a key concern that hopefully we've moved past. Applicant responsibilities, and frankly, every one of these, you've got the state looking over your shoulder. It's a fairly intensive process. But we are the point of contact. We have to say who that point of contact is. We have to say who's going to administer the project. Depending on who we say it's going to administer the project, the locality or VDOT, in which case we're planning to say VDOT, that changes some of the other responsibilities, such as who has to do the cost estimate and everything like that. We have to state what the project priority is if we're submitting more than one, which is really strange because Each project is supposed to stand on its own merit. What do you care what the priority is, VDOT? But that's one of the things we're supposed to say. Detailed project description and scope, project sketch, status, cost estimates, duration by phase, and on and on. Basically all the details of the project. It's fairly intensive. One of the key points with the old process versus the current process has to do with when you're expected to come up with a very reliable scope, cost of scope. Previously, you have a project, you are pitching that project through your plans, through the political process, through the CTB over the years. Eventually, you get a foothold in the 6-year program. You start to develop that project. As the project starts to come to fruition, VDOT starts working harder, spending preliminary design money, and at that point, they're starting to come up with a harder cost. For those who are more familiar with our process with 277, it's very similar. They thought they fully funded 277 out to Warrior Drive. When Governor McDonald sent the money to that project that he did, what happened in fairly short order as VDOT actually started spending money on the preliminary design and estimating right-of-way costs, all of a sudden became a project from I-81 to Double Church Road because they were blown away by the right-of-way cost. Well, now they're wanting that fairly hard cost estimate much sooner, and they're holding you accountable for it, because if you exceed that as you're actually coming through the process by more than, oh gosh, it's either application and you're expected to come up with a fairly hard cost estimate. But woe be to those who are not conservative still in that cost estimate, because if you go over it by such and such percentage, you're kicked right back to the beginning of the process. So it's this really delicate balance you're going to be expected to make in terms of developing that cost estimate, because there is that whole cost-benefit piece of in terms of the competitiveness of each application. But if you're not still fairly conservative in your cost estimate, you're going to get burned. So there you have that. Just some more details on the project scope and description. Fairly basic stuff. Projects that are conceptual in nature and not well defined may need, basically if you don't have your project details in order, they're going to tell you your project's not right for your application. You need to maybe bring it back next year. So that's something you also have to be aware of. This may be an important time to point out that we are fairly used to forever, my entire time working in transportation in the Commonwealth of Virginia, to having projects that are in the 6-year program, but maybe they only have study money on them. Maybe they only have right-of-way or design. You can't apply for that anymore. You have to apply for a full project. So I'll take you back to what happened to Frederick County in terms of funds that were cut from Exit 313, funds that were cut from Route 37, from Exit 310 over to 522, with the promise, well, you can apply for those next time, only for applying for the full project. So there's your gotcha if you're looking for it. So that's going to give us some headaches as we go through this process. It was very disappointing. I think it's a little short-sighted, but that's what we're dealing with. Finally, I know you're waiting for the end. Here it is. This is the proposed project timeline, annual timeline of what we're going to be working through. The key deadlines we're dealing with right now are that August to September. I did receive my credentials for being able to enter the applications. We have until the end of September to get our applications in that October to January timeframe. Those will be screened and evaluated. A big part of that is VDOT picking through your application and making sure they like it and everything you said in it is good. After that, they're going to release that evaluation. And finally, in the February to April timeframe, that's when the CTB is going to be considering what they want to put in. And in April, we'll get our draft 6-year improvement program. So it has been a long, hair-on-fire process. I expect there's going to be a lot more yet. I keep giving the anecdote of a few years back. It's getting to be more than a few. But when it seemed like every year there was new legislative changes to the revenue sharing program, I expect this to be much the same. I will not be surprised in the least, if for the next several years at least, we're seeing significant legislative maneuvering on this process. But in the meantime, we're going to keep dealing with whatever's on our plate at the moment and try and keep you as informed as we can. I can take any questions you may have.
I'm going to try to rely on my memory, which is dangerous. But there was a time in history when some money was thrown around and the desire was to have shovel-ready projects. And then the revised constrained road plan or six-year plan,
Constrained
which meant
long
no money doesn't get in there. Is that the term I was fighting for, I think? Came along and we couldn't get projects in the six-year road plan unless there was some money to go along with them or haven't been spent. And then we won a minor battle with if the development community was interested in the road and was likely to pay a fair share of it, we could get it attached. I had this fear that kept us from developing our transportation needs as well as they should be for somebody that wants to come along and evaluate projects. I feel like we're probably not ready because we couldn't put them in the six-year plan unless the development community was stepping up and the shovel-ready monies disappeared fast. I can't help but think sometimes about the bypass around Stevens City if it's not kind of a candidate for that. Don't think it's in the six-year, is it?
It's not, no. There are study funds on 307.
Transportations. I think we were encouraged and even kept from developing those thoughts to see what the future might be best for us. And I don't know if there's a way we can reinvigorate that or reinvent it without spending huge amounts of money or not. But that's my feeling.
I think you're accurate, sir.
Is that?
No, I think you're absolutely right. If you go back to Route 37, there was a time where this board spent a lot of money to bring Route 37 all the way up through a record of decision for the environmental aspect. And over the years, that got stale, as these things do, and expired. And it became the prevailing wisdom, not just here, but statewide, that you don't make those kind of investments unless you think you've got some hope for your project, because you're throwing a lot of money down a rabbit hole. Now it seems like we're circling back around, because these applications are calling for a lot of detail, a lot of readiness. Just the cost estimate needs alone in terms of...
Would it be possible to inventory our road projects and assess their readiness for measurement?
I believe so. I mean, it would be, we have a long list. It would be quite an undertaking, but I believe we could do that,
Probably
yes.
not very many that ready, right?
No.
Okay. Anybody else have a question? Thank you. I think that was informative, and I'm glad you're keeping up with it.
Thank you.
Good to have a resident expert. Board liaison reports, are there any?
Mr. Chairman, if I may, for those who are interested, on August the 25th, the Economic Development Authority will meet. There will be a guest speaker from the Virginia Economic Development Partnership, which is our counterpart at the state level. So if you're interested in hearing what the state has to say about their efforts on their behalf and others' behalf on economic development in the state, you're welcome to attend. Secondly, although I'm not a liaison, I was able to attend the Frederick County Public Schools Convocation program this morning. An excellent event welcoming teachers back to the new academic year. Miss Betsy Packard was named the Frederick County Teacher of the Year, a very deserving reward. A lot of good candidates. Thank every one of them for stepping up and being part of that team that educates our children. But it was a very good program this morning.
Since Mr. Lofton mentioned the convocation this morning, I too had the opportunity to attend with him, and I thought it was encouraging to see the enthusiasm of the teachers and learn some of the innovative programs that have already been put in place in the various schools. I also took the opportunity this afternoon. They held a similar event for school support staff, and I attended that. And like the recognition of the Teacher of the Year, they also had a series of awards for support staff that they identified, and I'm not going to go into details on the various awards, but they're certainly available on the press release on the school board's website.
Anyone else? Then if there are no other board liaison reports, we'll open the meeting up for citizen comments. Is there anyone who would like to address the board?
My name is Blaine Dunn. I'm at 115 Bedford Drive in Red Bed. Mr. Chairman, members of the board, I want to thank you for postponing the allocation of the $900,000 today, $800,000 to $900,000. Mr. Bishop has done a very good job on laying out the needs from his perspective on the use of that money. I want to come to you from the viewpoint of a taxpayer and a financial planner. And what I'm about to propose to you may take more than 90 days. I fully recognize what I'm going to say might be a year process. Mr. Bishop is always going to have further uses of money if it's not used. So for the Russell 150 project, if it's not used, we'll have projects A, B, C, and D. As a taxpayer, I would say to Mr. Bishop, and this is not personal to you, sir, what's the best use of that money? If the Russell 150 project was not used as an example, cannot the money come back to my pocket as a taxpayer, and that I, as a taxpayer, can use that money more effectively than the government can? I understand that you're dealing with balancing issues. If you don't like my first suggestion, and I understand that that might take a change in the law with the General Assembly. If you don't like the first suggestion, my second suggestion is that you, as a board, consider what is the highest priority of any unused money coming from VDOT, and then use that money for the highest priority that you as a board think is appropriate for the county. That may be a road project, it may be a building project, it may be something else. It might be debt reduction. But if you have extra money, then it does not necessarily have to go specifically to a VDOT project, but to your best use. So I understand that what I'm proposing would be a legislative change, but when you consider how to use that money, I'm going to ask you as a taxpayer to say that just because a project is not funded does not mean it has to be used elsewhere, but give the taxpayer the consideration to have the money come back to him either in the form of a check or in the form of a credit partial to the money that he's paid in taxes. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Next.
Mr. Chairman, gentlemen of the board, thank you for allowing me to speak before you this evening. And Mr. Hess, I want to say thank you for the diligent work you've put in to explain things this evening and really dig into things. You did a wonderful job, and I wanted to say thanks. I want to go back into history just a little bit and speak. It hasn't been too many years ago, back in the 80s and 90s, Frederick County was very rural. And there were many farmers in the county. And the farmers would get with the merchants and they would chat, and whenever there was some ire with the Board of Supervisors, they would come to the board and they would air their discrepancies and they would come to a resolution. It was truly a representative form of government. Then came along the 2000s and Mr. Schickel got elected, and there were some changes in that form of government. One of the most noted changes that I see is we've turned a little bit from a form of a representative government into a little bit more of a tyranny type of government. I'd like to go elaborate a little bit where we have headed and where we've been. If you happen to be a friend of Mr. Schickel, such as the Russell 150 project, you were given your full 3 minutes, or maybe even a little longer than that, or given another opportunity to speak, as happened on several occasions. And you were allowed to speak your piece. If you're Sean Graber, as last meeting, or even in April, you're cut short at a minute or maybe even less. So if you're a friend, you were allowed to speak. If you were not a friend, you were not allowed to speak. And it's a little bit like a dictator or well, maybe some communist countries, but we'll leave that alone. I do have the Republican Party of Virginia creed here, and I want to just ask you a question. It says that part of the creed, and I believe you're all are Republicans, state that all individuals are entitled to equal rights, to equal justice and opportunities, and should assume their responsibilities as citizens in a free society. Now, I have a question. One member of this board had a letter on July 31st in the Winchester Star. It was talking about debates. It was, I believe, the Red Bud District, and this is from Mr. Anson, and I quote, I think enough elected officials around here debate, I don't think enough elected officials around here debate each other. Ransom 38 told the Star on Thursday, the people need to hear from the candidates. Ransom organized the debate and set the event for 3 p.m. on October 3rd at Hanley Library Auditorium. The question remains, however, as to whether Ransom will have an opponent at the event. Ransom said Thursday that he did not have any intention of telling Mr. Dunn about the debate and instead wanted him to read about it in the newspaper. So now I'm going to ask you one more time. Is this a representative government, or is this a more tyrant type of government where we want our constituents to find out about after the fact what has been done? Thank you.
Is there anyone else? Yes, sir, come forward.
I don't think I have to walk up there, so I.
Yes, sir, I've got to request you do that. We've got some cameras and some other things. I'm sorry, but I got to do it. You won't show up in the analogs of history properly if you don't.
I did ask. You all have microphones in front of you. I'll be damned if I can hear what you all say 90% of the time. And I think that as I talk around to people sitting back here, we get mumbles and jumbles and I don't know. But sure, and I know I didn't hear anything of the Highway Department's presentation. Microphone's down here and he's talking to you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else? All right. Well, where's my agenda? Board of Supervisors comments, are there any?
Mr. Chairman?
Supervisor Hess.
Make sure it's brought to everyone's attention, both on the board and in the audience, of the monumental basketball game that's to take place this Saturday at...
Are you playing?
If I could use a ladder, perhaps I would. This is the Frederick County employees versus the Winchester City employees, the Frederick County Thunder versus the Winchester Rouseketeers. This is a fundraiser that's been established by the Fund Committee of the county staff to raise money for a very worthwhile charity.
Any other supervisor comments?
I got 2 comments, Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead.
First off, to address Mr. Graber, Mr. Dunn and myself have been playing phone tag. We're both very busy gentlemen, and I'm hopeful that we'll both be able to come to an agreement on a date and time to have a debate on the issues of my district and the county as a whole. I think it's important for at least the constituents of my district to hear my positions and to hear Mr. Dunn's positions and to make an educated decision who they want to elect. And I think the debate will happen. I think both participants are anxious for that, and it's good for the voters. Secondly, I'd like to comment on the article in the Winchester Star, I think it was last week, about the fire department. I think our county has gotten to the point where we need to come to a realization that we're going to have a trained, paid, full-force fire department. I was raised in Stevens City. I've lived in Frederick County my whole life. I remember in the days growing up when the county was very rural. It was 50,000 people, and we had a volunteer fire department that could do it for the most part. And our volunteers today are skilled, they're dedicated, they're committed, they're very good, but we just don't have the numbers anymore. It used to be in the day when people would volunteer and they'd work, and if they'd get a call, their employer would let them go. That doesn't happen anymore. It used to be in the day where a volunteer just had one job to support his family. That doesn't happen anymore. Our volunteers are working 2-3 jobs to support a family, and they don't have the time anymore, enough time to volunteer. And thirdly, generationally, it's done, or not done, but it's very limited. When I was growing up here, it used to be where your grandfather, your father, your brother, your cousins were all volunteer firefighters. Nowadays, you just don't have that generational unity anymore with the volunteers. So I think the board needs to really look at the ways that we need more paid personnel firefighters on the force. The men and women we have now are capable, they're very competent, they're dedicated, they're committed, they're reliable. But the truth of the matter is, we need more. I think the fire department proposed at the budget, they needed 50 more. We were able to give them 10. I think they need the other 40. We need to think of ways to do that. I've been banging my head up against the wall, talking to people, trying to figure out proposals. And I think a good start right now is, which I'm in support of, is we allow fire departments to bill businesses for the annual inspections. This is done in Warren County, Loudoun County, Fairfax County, all around. We have the authority to allow them to do that under the Fire Prevention Code. We adopted that code so we can give them the green light to start doing this. There's 1,100 businesses in Frederick County. We could allow, each business has to get inspected each year under the fire code. That's good. That's good for employees, customers, even the business assets. They need to get inspected each year. And I would propose that you bill them on a pro rata basis. For instance, a big company like Walmart, fire departments spend 6-7 hours inspecting that building. So you'd bill them maybe $300. Fire department goes to a mom and pop shop, it takes them 20 minutes to inspect it, you'd bill them, I don't know, $10. According to my calculations, with 1,100 businesses, if you do it on a pro rata form, it would bring in the fire department an additional up to $200,000 annually, which could be used to hire paid firefighters, which we desperately need. I think it's a good step. I'm always open to other alternatives to meet the demand of the fire department. But I think we really need to consider that. I am in support of it, and maybe we can do that down the road. Thank you, Chairman.
Any other supervisor comments?
Mr. Chairman, I move we adjourn.
We have a motion to adjourn. Is there a second? Second by Supervisor Lofton. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Meeting adjourned.